if we move away from the standards we've enjoyed with the EU, we move to different standards, and I think the US standards are inferior to the standards we've got.
Rat hairs in the paprika, maggots in the orange juice.
It's about the standards that we operate. We operate very high standards at the moment, and I think there's a big concern that those standards go down. I think the biggest risk, if I may say so...
is that hyperbole?
Well, look, it's illustrating the point, but...
No, is that hyperbole from your leader?
It's
rat hairs in the paprika and maggots in the orange juice.
It's illustrating a point about standards slowing.
Have you ever been to the United States on holiday?
I've been to the United States many,
Have you ever had maggots in your orange juice?
I have been to the United States. I have holidayed there. I have worked there. I've travelled through there many, many times.
And have you been worried about rat hairs in your paprika?
There are real worries about food standards
and maggots
in America.
In your orange
but
juice.
let me just,
US trade deal. Hot on the heels of the Indian trade deal, in which Keir Starmer sold us down the River Ganges. Now this comprehensive trade deal with the United States, comprehensive, is 5 pages long. And it's not legally binding, so it's not set in stone. It's work in progress. Of course, Keir Starmer is now going around saying, I've saved the British car industry, I've saved the steel industry. Well, he's not shouting like that because he doesn't. I have saved the British car industry, I have saved British steel. More like that, I suppose, really. But anyway, so what's happened is, in reality, is that Keir Starmer has bent over, pulled his pants down and been truly shafted by the dastardly Trump. Overall, Britain is going to be paying more to export to the United States, while the United States is going to be paying less to export into the United Kingdom. So as you can see, US tariffs are now almost 3 times higher than before, while Starmer has reduced ours by around 1/3. Good deal! The 10% base rate tariff that Trump imposed remains in place, but there are some tariffs that Starmer's team have got reduced or abolished around aluminium, steel, beef, but the base rate tariff remains in place. So it's not all bad. It's good for some industries, but there is a reason. There is a reason that we can go around. The UK can now go around the world doing trade deals. We can go around the world doing trade deals with India, United States, Australia, Canada, Mexico. We can go around the world doing trade deals. We can do these trade deals that will give Chairman Starmer the ability to stand behind on the podium and say, we have made a trade deal with Canada and it's fantastic. There's a reason that we can independently, as the United Kingdom, go around the world making trade deals with whomsoever we wish, and there is a what is it? It's that Brexit, isn't it? And that's exactly what it is. It's Brexit. The fact that we left the European Union means that we can now act independently by going around the world doing trade deals with whomsoever we wish. And they may be bad trade deals, as we have Chairman Starmer in charge, but we are allowed to go around doing trade deals now. And you will be hard pushed to find a Labour minister or even a Labour MP that is willing to admit that fact.
Is this a Brexit bonus?
I don't think it's anything to do with Brexit insofar as...
President's wrong.
Who's wrong?
The President. The President said this was aided by Brexit. President of the United States, a man called Donald Trump.
Oh, I know the guy, Nick.
Yeah, yeah.
He thinks Brexit's a good deal, of course. He said that a lot.
Yes.
I suppose what he was referring to was the fact that we're the first country in the world to have got a deal across the line with the president and getting tariffs down, which is great news for the UK economy.
But it wouldn't have been possible if Britain was still in the European Union, would it?
I don't know.
Well, how?
You?
Sorry. How? Well, no, I'm not familiar, and I'm not Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Thank God, the country's suffered enough. But how would a deal have been done if Britain was still part of the European Union? How would that have been achieved with President Trump? I'm intrigued. This is part of Brexit, isn't it? An unexpected, unintended Brexit boost.
The world has changed so much since Brexit. I think what you're asking me is, would we have been able to negotiate a bilateral set of arrangements as part of the European Union? What I'm saying to you, Nick, is I actually just don't know.
Okay,
but
so when Donald Trump
we live
says
in,
this was separate because of Brexit in particular, it always seems so natural. He's not getting it quite right, in your view.
Well, no, that's his view, and I welcome it because we've been able to get a deal across the line. Look, Nick, we left the European Union a long time ago. Yes. It's not really relevant to how we operate these days.
Starmer and Co. don't want you to know that it's because of Brexit that we can make these trade deals, right? And 6 years ago, there was talk of a trade deal with the United States as Brexit loomed in the background, and the opposition of that time poured scorn upon the idea that we could possibly make a trade deal, and especially make a trade deal with the dastardly Donald Trump. Oh, the thought of it. Imagine making a trade deal with Donald Trump. The thought of it.
Just a few moments ago, I spoke to President Trump, the President of the United States, that we've agreed the basis of a historic economic prosperity deal.
This will be a bitter pill to swallow for certain people. A Labour government has achieved a US trade deal because of the hated Brexit and through the despised Donald Trump. This is the Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry speaking in 2018.
Once we leave the EU, if we leave the EU, then everything depends upon getting big trade deals with other parts of the world. Above all, top of the queue, Donald Trump's America. If we have completely hacked him off, if he really hates us, it's going to be much, much harder for a future government, which might well be a Labour government, to do the deal that needs to be done.
Right, well, let's take this in stages. The first thing is that he said that he wanted to do a trade deal with Britain and that he thought that he could do it within weeks. That shows that he doesn't have a real grasp of what a trade agreement actually is. These things take years.
These things take years, not weeks. Trump only imposed that 10% tariff a few weeks ago, and we have a trade agreement.
Secondly, it won't be for him to be making the trade deal. There are many people in the United States. We're not in some medieval court.
But you can't
where
go round the president.
Well, I think that, the American democracy has many checks and balances, and I think that there are a number of people who are very important to speak to.
So now she's trying to suggest that a trade agreement could be made behind the president's back with some random person in the government, in the Senate, Congress. What? Hey, what? And now, for the real hatred to flow through Emily.
He may be there for a long time to come, and asteroid of awfulness, good though it is, may not be enough to cut it, really.
He is an asteroid of awfulness that has fallen on this world. I think that he is a danger, and I think that he is a racist.
The hatred of Trump during his first term on those Labour benches was palpable. This is Lisa Nandy speaking on BBC Radio in 2019.
Donald Trump is no friend to the United Kingdom.
Donald Trump is no friend of the United Kingdom. That's her opening gambit. Well, Lisa, he loves the United Kingdom. I think one of the main reasons for that is his mum was from the United Kingdom. Mary MacLeod was his mother, his Scottish mother. So I think that's a little bit low.
Proven that since he took office, he's put up protectionist barriers. He came over here and undermined the Prime Minister when she was close to getting a Brexit deal through.
That's quite ironic, talking about that, because you didn't want a Brexit deal. Because you didn't want Brexit.
He's insulted the Mayor of London. And he said she'd done a very good job after he'd given an interview which undermined her at every stage at the most crucial point of the parliamentary votes. And he's insulted the Mayor of London. He is not a friend to the people of the United Kingdom.
He insulted the Mayor of London. Oh, how dare he.
And the fact that Boris Johnson is now putting all of our eggs into Donald Trump's basket is a real problem. There is a reason why you didn't see Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt standing up to Donald Trump when he used racist, inflammatory language recently, and that is because they have so upset and alienated all of our European friends and allies that we're now in the position of begging Donald Trump, who is no friend of ours, for a trade deal. That is a pathetic position for the United Kingdom to be in.
And this is Lisa Nandy during her leadership campaign in 2020, suggesting that no Labour government, no government should make a deal with a country, i.e. the United States under Trump, that does not ratify the Paris Climate Change Accords.
As we look forward to forge new trading alliances across the world, we'll need to make choices. We should be clear now that we would refuse to agree any trade deal with a country that has not ratified the Paris Agreement.
Funnily enough, Lisa hasn't had anything to say about the US trade deal. She's had plenty to say about the Indian trade deal, but she hasn't mentioned the US trade deal, funnily enough. But thankfully, her former comrade Ed Balls brought it up on Good Morning Britain. Watch this.
You said it was pathetic to beg the US for a trade deal. You said we should be standing up to Trump, not trying to do a deal with him. I just don't understand why was it weak to try and do a trade deal in 2019-20, and why is it strong now when other countries are retaliating, standing up to Trump? Keir Starmer's refusing to. In your words, it's pathetic.
I don't think it's pathetic to try and secure a trade deal, and I never have. That we would refuse to agree any trade deal with a country that has not ratified the Paris Agreement. And we have a very long and deep military and security relationship with them that has survived every president and has thrived under successive presidents, including last time President Trump was in office. But we know in Britain that it's in America's interest to do a trade deal with us as well. We actually we buy more from America than we sell to them at the current time. We want to increase British exports to the UK, but it's in America's interest to do a deal. It's in our interest to do a deal. And that's why the Prime Minister has spoken to President Trump. The Chancellor has spoken to senior members of the Trump administration. The Business Secretary has been working hard, not just with the United States, but with India, with the European Union, with all of our closest allies, to make sure that we can continue to trade openly and freely, because it's in Britain's interests.
OK, so I think begging for a trade deal if you're Keir Starmer is not pathetic, but it is if you're Boris Johnson.
An American deal that has been done. An American deal that has been done.
And we couldn't mention the US trade deal without going back again 6 years to the Labour leadership of Jeremy Corbyn and the infamous
rat hairs in paprika, maggots in orange juice.
Rat hairs in the paprika and maggots in the orange juice. Now, Jeremy Corbyn was historically no fan of the European Union. In any other circumstances in 2016, he would have been on the Leave campaign. But as Labour leader, he was trapped by his parliamentary party, the overwhelming majority of whom were EU fanatics, led by his shadow Brexit secretary, Sir Keir Starmer. Now, it wouldn't surprise us if it was old Sir Keir who put the rat hairs in the paprika speech together. Here he is, being skewered by Kay Burley.
you are perhaps guilty of scare tactics, some might say, and I'm referring to the fact that your leader is going to say later on today that there'll be rat hairs in the paprika and maggots in the orange juice if we do a trade deal with the US when we leave.
I think
really,
if we move away from the standards we've enjoyed with the EU, we move to different standards, and I think the US standards are inferior to the standards we've got.
Rat hairs in the paprika, maggots in the orange juice.
It's about the standards that we operate. We operate very high standards at the moment, and I think there's a big concern that those standards go down. I think the biggest risk, if I may say so...
is that hyperbole?
Well, look, it's
yes
illustrating the point, but...
No, is that hyperbole from your leader?
It's
rat hairs in the paprika and maggots in the orange juice.
It's illustrating a point about standards
slowing. Have you ever been to the United States on holiday?
I've been to the United States many,
Have you ever had maggots in your orange juice?
I have been to the United States. I have holidayed there. I have worked there. I've travelled through there many, many times.
And have you been worried about rat hairs in your paprika?
There are real worries about food standards
and maggots
in
your orange juice.
But let me just, I mean, since we come on to America and a trade deal with America, I think the bigger concern for many, many people is that if we go down the road of a trade deal with America, medicine prices are likely to go up because most American firms think that the NHS is keeping prices of medicines too low by the way it purchases them, and they want that to change. That is a real danger for people within the NHS. I haven't really met anybody who says... That's nothing to do with maggots in orange juice. No, but I'm just saying there are bigger issues.
And you have to acknowledge that that is hyperbole from what your leader is going to say in a speech later on.
It's making a point about lowering of standards if we do trade deals with America.
OK, but as I said, you've been to the United States and you've never, I'm guessing, had to deal with that sort of thing.
I haven't.
OK.
If you don't love your country, you won't fight for your country. And you certainly won't get good deals for your country. And that's what's happened. We've got people negotiating trade deals in bad faith who don't have our best interests at heart. People like Peter Mandelson. Keir Starmer, Peter Mandelson reached the pinnacles of their Labour careers 20 years apart, but unified by so many things, policies dictated by an agenda driven by